Hey guys, Patrick here with MT Knives, coming to you today with today's Expert Counsel segment of the week. Today's question comes from Brandon. He says, I'm looking for two knives, an EDC knife and another for traveling in my vehicle. What style and types do you recommend? And also, I would like to carry a knife daily. I currently carry a folding razor blade style knife. I would like to have a stronger blade and wondering pros and cons of folding compared to a full tang knife. I would also like a larger knife to have in my vehicle for breaking down fish or game bones, as well as being used to use for splitting kindling for fire. Is there recommended metal for being hard enough not to mushroom if a mallet is used on it? So, kind of a lot to unpack there. I'll start off by saying, like, recommendations. Everybody's going to have a different recommendation. And I hate it when people give recommendations of things that they don't personally do or would do. As far as an EDC knife, as you know, I'm a huge fan of a neck knife, carry style knife like the Genesis or a custom made knife. Just the ease of ability, the ease of concealability, the ease of access, it's always there when you need it. You're not going to forget it in your other pants or not be able to get to it when you're sitting down or, whatever. Any type of pocket carry, belt carry, any other carry is nowhere near as accessible as a neck knife. And it's just my preferred method of carry. So I would recommend getting something like the Genesis or a nice custom neck knife. The key to it is you want your knife to have good retention. Because, a lot of people are concerned about carrying a knife around their neck. Well, what if it falls out? What if this? What if that? And it's like, there's always a possibility, no matter what, there's pocket knives come open and cut people when they stick their hand in their pocket or, whatever. There's always going to be some danger, some level of danger with having a knife and getting cut by it. So be sure that you have a good quality sheath. And with the sheaths that I now have on the Genesis, they have adjustable retention. So you can dial that thing in as tight as you want or as loose as you feel comfortable with. I set the retention on them where I would probably carry it. I try to keep it about 7 to 12 pounds of pull. That's going to be secure enough that, like, if you jump down off a sudden, the shock of you hitting the ground is not going to dislodge that knife from the sheath. I've done a lot of different testing with my neck knives to make sure that they're secure. But at the end of the day, you're responsible for your own safety. You got to make sure that it's secure. You got to be careful when you pull it out. You don't want to cut yourself or injure yourself. So, number one, my best recommendation for EDC knife is some sort of neck knife, neck carry knife. So, and then as far as one to have in your vehicle. So what got me into knife making a long time ago was bushcraft survival type situations. And I was into learning about bushcrafting, building shelters, splitting firewood, all that kind of stuff. And you really there's a lot to be said about having the right tool for the right job. And anytime a tool is good for anything, it's not going to excel in, if it's good for everything, it's not going to excel in one task. So, perfect example, fillet knife. You want a fillet knife to be nice and thin, flexible, sharp. You're not going to baton wood with a fillet knife. On the other hand, a big bushcraft knife that's going to be good for splitting wood and stuff like that is going to make a lousy fillet knife. So, there's really a lot to be said about having the right tool for the right job. And sometimes the right tool for processing firewood would be an axe and a saw. Something that you could break the wood down into manageable pieces and then split it. So, I say all that to say, I don't personally carry a big knife most of the time. I got a knife that I call the Ranger. It's a Bob Loveless drop point hunter style knife. And, if you're watching on YouTube, here is one that I bought from another maker. Actually, my mentor who trained me on how to do the Loveless style knives. Nice stag handle, beautiful blade. I need to clean it up, but I love this knife. I've used it on deer and different things, but I don't carry it every day, and I don't keep it in my vehicle just because it's a knife that's really important to me. I don't want to lose it or have something happen to it. So it's kind of a safe queen somewhat, but I wouldn't hesitate to having a knife like that in my vehicle. There's lots of other options. So this here particular knife I got from a friend, and I believe it's a Bark River. Bark River knives, like, people have different opinions of these companies, but they, for the money, like, they're not a bad knife. This one's been personally sharpened by a guy in Japan. Just does a phenomenal job of a convex edge. It's really good for like bushcraft style work. I was really happy to get this knife because it was sharpened by Virtue Vice on YouTube. You could check out his channel. He is really passionate about sharpening, and just this edge I didn't feel like felt extremely sharp, but it performs really well, especially in like batoning wood, splitting wood, that kind of stuff. So I've had some fun with that knife doing some bushcrafting type stuff. This one here is a F1, what is it? Falcon. But there's a ton of different like bushcrafting options. What's the other? LT Wright knives, I think, makes a lot of like bushcraft style knives. So there's a lot of different steels used, and you can have a homogeneous blade that is heat treated differentially. So what they'll do sometimes, like a high carbon blade, the spine of the knife will actually be soft and the edge is hardened. I wouldn't recommend a knife like that if you're going to pound on it and beat it with a mallet and stuff, because it's going to mushroom, it's going to deform that edge, or could, depending on how soft the spine is. This is not a differentially heat treated knife. In fact, I believe it's like a sandmite style steel. And then a lot of it too is your thickness. If you're going to be batoning wood, you want a knife that has a pretty thick spine for two reasons. One, for the strength, but two, to split wood, the thicker it is, the more splitting action you get going. If the knife is real thin, it's not really going to split the wood. So, but the problem is, like, this thing is heavy. I don't know the weight on this, but it's not light. And so that's not a big deal, especially if you're going to be out in the bush for a few days or whatever and you're carrying it on your belt. But I like to be light and mobile. The more gear you carry, the more it weighs you down, the more it slows you down. So anyways, those are a few recommendations. I'm really going to say a lot of it's just going to be trial and error, personal preference. One thing I would say is when it comes to using a knife, a lot of times people buy something that looks cool. Maybe it's got a lot of sharp corners or rough edges. And when it comes down to actually using it, you're going to find that it's going to put hot spots on your hand, especially if you're using it for prolonged times. So I would look for something that has a good good gripping handle, but doesn't have a lot of sharp edges that may cause hot spots. This handle here is nice. The Loveless Drop Point Hunter kind of Coke bottle shaped handles I really like. This one here, Bark River, same. It's feels good in your hand. You can really fist grip it and put a lot of work behind the edge and not cause hot spots. If you do happen to have a knife that's giving you hot spots and has sharp edges, I would not at all hesitate to taking it to a sander, or even just by hand with some coarse grit sandpaper and knock those sharp edges off and then sand it down finer. A lot of times you're going to find people that do a lot of work with their knives. It's not uncommon for them to make modifications to the knife itself, but a good design shouldn't need modified. I'm currently working on a bird and trout knife. It's not going to necessarily be a knife that would be good for batoning. However, it would be good for processing fish and small game. I'm finishing up, trying to get my shop finished up, and we're going to be starting on a limited edition run of bird and trout knives. So that might be another knife that would be good for your EDC or carrying in your vehicle, especially if you're going to be out fishing, hunting, processing game. So check that out as well. Anyways, I appreciate your question, Brandon. I hope this is helpful. Hopefully it kind of answered your question in a way that you find helpful. If you have other questions, feel free to shoot them to me, patrick@mtknives.net, and I'd love to answer them for you. Thanks again. This has been Patrick Roehrman with MT Knives. Stay sharp.